a special episode of The Big Green Shop, which I like to call the Big Brown Piano. This is a 1930s Story and Clark piano, or potentially a piano-shaped object, depending on who you ask. But it's mine. I actually got this as a freebie. It was on a Buy Nothing group, and all I had to do was pay for transport and then pay to get it tuned, and then take it apart a couple of times and fix some broken stuff on it. It's about 90 years old, so there's a few things that are less than perfect. But since I am a far less than perfect piano player, it's ideal for me. Well, today I'm going to bring you along as I fixed one small but annoying feature of this piano. A problem with the C3 key, here. Now, spoiler alert, I'm filming this 2 weeks after I did the fix, and it's fixed. So, the answer to can I fix this piano is yes I can. But let's go back in time and I'll take you through what the problem is and what I did to take care of it. The C3 key will play correctly, but when you let off of it, there's a high-pitched ringing sound that lingers for a while. You hear that ringing sound? It's only on this low C that happened. Listen again. The high-pitched ringing is not there if you hold the note. But if it's a brief note, you get it. So what's going on? The problem is this damper is just not coming down all the way. We're in my editing room right now, and the next step in this whole process is for me to take the keyboard assembly out of the piano. I tried to film it with a GoPro strapped to my forehead. Unfortunately, the video was pretty much unusable. I could not point the camera in the right direction. I was breathing heavily the entire time. Nobody wants to watch that. So if you want to know how to take the keyboard out of a piano, there should be some videos out on YouTube about it. Ultimately, it's just a matter of removing the keyboard cover and the trim panel in front of the keyboard, and then the keyboard itself just pulls right out. Okay, so we're into the guts of this thing now. So let's talk about what happens when I press a key. The back of the key lifts this up, and that is the damper mechanism. So we're just releasing the damper there. Now, there's a few other things going on in here. You've got these 3 pedals down here. So the left pedal operates this mechanism. And that shifts the entire keyboard to the right a little bit, causing the hammers to miss one string out of each set, and that quiets the piano. Next, we have this middle key, the middle pedal. And that's unique to this piano. It's a different style. What this does is a selective sustain. So let's say I'm playing this key. Damper lifts. Now I hit the pedal and it hangs. But if I hit another key, that key does not sustain. It's a very clever system that lets you hold specific keys. Now this mechanism has got some tuning issues. For instance, if you look down here, you see that damper that's lifting? And then there's one over here where these are catching and hanging, and they shouldn't. So that one shouldn't hang like that. I could spend hours just tweaking this thing. It looks like someone's been in here before. That is bent slightly. There's all sorts of adjustments in here. I'm not sure if I want to get into that now, but what I want to address is that low C, which is here. And the problem, I think, is just that the damper rod is too long. Now, somebody's tried to tweak it. They bent the rod to try and shorten it. But since I've got access, I think I can undo that screw. God, that cat won't shut up. I can undo this screw and then just slide the rod down in there a bit, and hopefully that will solve it. So I'll give it a try. I went ahead and removed the damper, and I learned something, a couple of things. First, when I took the damper out, the key fell far below, this mechanism, I don't know what it's called, fell far below where I expected it to fall. So the problem is not simply the adjustment, because this was free to drop further. The only thing stopping it from dropping was the damper itself. So I took another look at the damper, and with it out, I can see more of what's going on. Let's bring you in here. So normally it sits in the piano like this. That's the back, that's the front, and I guess ideally you want both pieces of felt to contact to do a good job. It seems reasonable enough. But you've got almost no contact pattern on the front, but you've got a pretty significant contact pattern on the rear. Same on the other side. And if you look at the cross section, that rear felt has seen better days. It's squished down quite a bit. Whereas the front felt is a nice triangular shape, which is what you would expect. There's a little distortion, but not nearly as much. So based on that, I think what's happening is this whole thing should be sitting like this, and instead it's riding like that. So this front felt never got a chance to do its job. So I just tweaked the wire a bit, and I'm going to reinstall it and see if I can now get it to fall happily on the strings to the point where this front felt does its job. Of course, the ideal solution is probably to replace all these felts, but boy, that is a big old can of worms to open up to get into that. I don't want to do it. So I'll just try this for now. While this is out, I also got a better look at the mechanism of this little dingus, which is part of that middle pedal mechanism I demonstrated, and it's actually spring-loaded. Didn't expect that. It's quite complicated. And quite clever. Anyhow, let's get this right back in. Apologize, that's kind of dark. There we go. So let's get this back in. It goes to the left of the string set, down through the hole, and this is just kind of like the push rods on an old school engine. Okay, it's more or less in. Now I've got to get it fed into the rod goes into the whatcha-thingy. I don't know what any of this stuff is called, and I'm looking up top to make sure that it falls into place on the strings correctly. That feels pretty good, and I can see now that the front is touching. The back is off. I might actually tweak it a bit more the other direction. Got it back on now, and it's looking pretty good. I can touch it, and it doesn't want to rock. Feels like both sets of felts are sitting happily. That one is the same way. It sits well. You can see this one, the front's not touching. I might tweak that as well while I'm in here. More likely what I'll do is just fully reassemble it, test this one, and then if I like the results, I might do this again on other ones. Alright, so the next thing is that these felts all need to be at approximately the same height. Now, I'm sure that there are professional tools, probably something like a machinist jack, where you set this just so. I am not nearly that critical because, again, this is a question of making the piano good enough for the person who is playing it. And given that I'm still at the level of Camptown races, just don't need to try that hard. I just want it to not ring. Click. Anyway, that is back together. So next, let's reinstall the keyboard and see if it plays better. I've got the keyboard mechanism installed, so now I can find out whether this C3 key is still going to ring or whether I have solved the problem. So it's a pretty simple test. We just hit the key. And that's really nice. It plays, but once the damper comes back down, there is no high-pitched ringing. Now let's try a continuous note. It does seem like there's a little bit of high-pitched background ring to it, but that I think is just in the nature of this piano. The main thing is once you release the key, it all stops. So that's good enough for me. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.